Tonight we're going to look at the components in the panel, the front panel on an Electrolux oven, smooth cooktop with 5 burners. So the first thing you've got to do before you make any repair, or if you go in and you're monkeying around, you want to make sure the power's off. So you need to do this in 2 manners. You can do it by visually seeing the light go off when you kill power, and then you want to confirmation with your electrical meter. So let's kill the power. I know that's the breaker. Alright, so we can see it's off here. We can open the oven door. You can see the lights off. And there's no response. We don't get a tone or no readout on the displays. So in order to learn what's in this panel, this control panel here, we can see we've got knobs that you or the consumer interact with. We've got to get into it. So this one right here, we can see we have the panel itself, we have the knobs, and we have a cover beneath the bottom of this oven all the way around. So the tools you're going to need for this to get into this control, it's like I said, you're going to need to know where your breaker's at. If you do not understand electricity, and of course you don't want to hurt yourself or property, you always want to be safe. It's safety first. So if you don't feel comfortable, do not have the knowledge or the tools to properly repair or diagnose a piece of electrical equipment, I would recommend to call a professional. Now back to the tools. You're also going to need a number 2 Phillips screwdriver and a 1/4 inch nut driver. I'm not going to use this one. I'm going to use this one. It's a 1/4 inch chuck and it's magnetized. So basically that's the tools you'll need. This right here is the schematic. Always have your schematic out when you're working on electrical. And we just pulled this up so we'd know where to confirm the power is off when we open up this panel. We know it's off by throwing the breaker. We're just going to confirm we don't have any feed coming into that line if we were to go into it. And we can see on here on this schematic we've got neutral comes into the J3 connector, and L1 does also comes back to pin number 6 on the J3 connector. So we're looking at pins 8 and 6 on J3, and one's going to be white and one's going to be black. So in order to get this cover from beneath this control panel, we've got to remove it. We're going to have a Phillips screw on each side that's holding it, and we're going to have 2 beneath the panel. We'll have to open the door to get to. This Phillips head is not magnetic. So we're going to come on this side. We're going to remove the second screw. And then we're going to open the door. And when we look up or beneath the panel, it's kind of dark, we should see these 2 points right here to where we've got to remove these screws. We're going to use a Phillips. And be careful, you know, if you drop a screw, if you don't have, just know where it goes. We're going to drop them up on top. This should pull straight out. And it does. So now we can see that we've got the panel. It's still up here with the surface, but we've removed the cover. So now in order to tilt this to where we can get to the controls, we can see on each side of this panel we've got a screw at the top, we've got a screw at the bottom. So this is a hinge. This is going to act like a hinge. So we're going to loosen the screw on the bottom, and we're going to remove the top screw. Back to the other side, same thing. We've got a screw and our hinge screw. We're going to loosen the hinge screw. And we're going to remove the upper screw. As well as those screws on the side, we also have two brackets beneath the control panel. Right in the center of it, usually, you've got the EOC, or the electric range control. And to either side of that, we're going to see some brackets right here. And we've got to remove the screws in the lower half of that bracket on each side to get this to flip. Again, on the left side, remove these wire harnesses. I've already removed those two screws. Alright, so we've removed the screws on the left. We've loosened the hinge screw. We've loosened the screws in the brackets beneath the panel. We loosened our hinge screw over here, and we removed the other screw. So now we should be able to just tilt this down. And there it is. Looking at this, we can see our two control boards. They're actually the controls to your knobs. There's your knobs, your consumer input. And then right behind that are the two control boards. Some people call them potentiometers. In the center, we have the EOC. And on the right hand side of this control panel, we've also got two controls, but on top of those controls, we can see the controls on the back side, or at the top. And the board right there is a UIB, and it's going to feed the electronic surface control. Alright, so you're supposed to verify your power, so we'd have to find J3. So 1, 2, 3, 4, black and white. P3, J3, where's J3? Right there. J3. It's upside down, but we can see it. There's our black and white wires. And that corresponds with the J3 on the schematic. We can see pins 8 and 6 are white and black. So we can see on that schematic, oh, it stopped. Then on pin 6 and 8, the white and black, we should be able to check for 120. So let's set this meter up. Just stick it somewhere where she's going to hold. Got her on volts AC. Sorry about the horrible camera work. There's our black. And our white wires. You can see I have no voltage on this circuit, on that EOC. I can move my hand. Alright, so we proved it. So the objective of getting in this tonight was to show you where the screws were and to talk about these components and how they interact. If you do not understand how the components on what you're working on operate, then how do you know if they're operating effectively or correctly? So you need to know how this oven functions. In later videos, we're going to get into the components of the cooktop. We're going to get into the elements. This one's a triple element, 1, 2, and 3. We've got a rear center. We've got 2 left with a bridge. So we'll look at those. We'll go more in depth on schematics. Again, safety first. So we've proven we have no power. So these are our control boards. This is our EOC. So every function that the oven has is run through this EOC. So if you want to bake, if you want to broil, if you want to convection bake, then the operations are going to go through the EOC. Our front panel, of course you've seen it, it looks like this. That front panel is connected to the EOC coming through the panel on this ribbon. And we can see that this ribbon goes down to the control board. The other side of the control panel connects as well and goes into the panel. It connects to the EOC. And again, this is, we check power here because this is the closest power we have. Our electronic service control, which is on the back of the unit, acts in conjunction with the controls themselves. The controls on the right, and the UIB board. So where does this UIB board come in? This UIB board, you'll note that the far left controls, we have this interconnecting cable. This is our communication. It comes all the way through, and then we connect over here to the UIB board. So all of these controls go to this UIB board, and it's fed the information of how far you're turning it. So if you turn it to high, or you want the triple burner on, all 3 of them on this front, then we would set it through that control. That control would feed that information to this UIB board, and as you can see, this UIB board has communication wiring that goes back to the back of the oven to the electronic surface control that sends power to the burners on the cooktop. So the controls on the left and the controls on the right all interconnect with this UIB board, and then the UIB board sends the information back to the ESC, electronic surface control, to turn those on, and the EOC is for the oven only. So that's pretty much it. If you want to remove this UIB, I would recommend don't use a drill. You want to be easy peasy. We've got 4 screws, 2 on either side. You can see them plainly on the left. And we would simply, well, just take a screwdriver and go at it. So things I would be listening for if I had an element that wasn't coming on. When you turn the knob, does the user interface change? If it does, I would think that that's telling me that the potentiometer behind the knob is working, and the UIB would be receiving that information, or it would not respond with the correlating number. Alright, so we pretty much got these two out. Then on the other side there's two more screws. Gotta get a good brace on it. Alright. So a lot of people open these panels up and they see all these wirings and they say, oh Lord have mercy. Now what? Well, that's because they don't understand the relationship that these components have, or they might not even understand that this front control, this EOC, has nothing to do with these, which is obvious because you turn the knobs to operate the cooktop. And you press the buttons for your oven functions. So now that we've got these 4 screws out of our UIB, we can remove it and we have a better view of the 2 controls on the right. They look just like the left. And of course, you can see the knobs. There's our input. And it's also made plain and obvious again that the wiring coming from the control integrates to the UIB. What I'm trying to stress is these 3 components: the controls, the UIB, the connecting wiring, and the ESC, or the electric surface control in the back, are what is all that are involved in operating your elements on the top of this unit. Again, the control panel is connected to the user interface, and this component right here is for the oven. So that's all we got. You're going to put it back together in the manner you took it apart, just reverse. Do not go into this or attempt any repairs like this if you're not familiar with electricity, the flow of electricity, the dangers of electricity, and the harm it can do to you and others. So there's our controls and our UIB. Beating a dead horse, the UIB, the controls, the connecting conductor, and the ESC on the back operate the burners. The EOC, or the electronic oven control, handles all the cooking functions. Good night.